1967. Howard was a dominant athlete at Whitefish Bay High School. He not only started football, baseball, and track, he was also a captain and leader in each of these sports. He lettered as a freshman in track and accumulated 9 additional letters over the course of his high school career. Howard demonstrated a fierce competitive spirit and led Whitefish Bay to championships in football and basketball. In basketball, he was a wizard at point guard, where he had the uncanny ability to see the whole court a few moves ahead of everyone else. With Howard running the show, the basketball team qualified for the first state tournament in school history in 1967. He helped lead Whitefish Bay High School to a conference championship in football in 1966. He was an elusive, lightning-fast halfback, punt returner, and kickoff returner, which led him to be recognized as the first-team All-Suburban Conference selection and a second-team All-State selection in his senior year. In track, Howard was the state champion in the 180 hurdles in 1966. In 1967, his time of 19.1 is still the state record for that event. Following high school, he completed his college education in Princeton with a degree in philosophy, received his MBA from New York University, and went on to found his own company, Business Logic, presently located in Manhattan. It's my pleasure to introduce Zien.
As the other inductees have said, it is unbelievable. You have no idea. It's unbelievably. I feel so privileged, so honored, and humbled to be here today. But the plaque says, fierce competitor. I hope I don't feel like that definition. Maybe I have to redo the plaque. But I'm experiencing another feeling that you're probably not thinking about. I feel startled in a good way. Not so much at the award itself, which has been in the works for a year and a half. That's plenty of time to get used to the idea. But gives me this sense of pride and joy is that there are 50, 60 others in this room. You've already seen some of them stand up. I'm going to have to do that again in a second. But they consider this award to be theirs as well. And I'm just so honored that they have that same reaction. Some came from across town, fair enough, but other ones came from, listen to this, Florida, California, Alaska, North Carolina, Colorado, New York, and one classmate even from Italy. In thinking about it, this shared excitement makes sense because I didn't earn this award by myself. There were others on the field that played with me, in the stands, in the classrooms, in the hallways. After games, we had social events, right? They were kind of fun. So their enthusiasm, their spirit, their heart is an essential ingredient to all this that we're talking about, which occurred 50 years ago. They shared my pregame anxiety on Thursdays and Fridays, my on-the-field sense of purpose and commitment during the games, my sense of pride and joy. After so many successful outcomes, and we had way more than our share. It was unbelievable. So during our 50th reunion, as we toured the high school, your Principal Levick, comments to all within earshot. I was within earshot. I heard her say it. She said, "I must say, your class certainly has a lot of spirit." Indeed we do, and 52 years ago, indeed we did. So I would like all of my classmates, at this time on cue, to stand up, and their companions, friends, family members, to stand up and be honored. Thank you very much. That is so great. So my memory of athletic triumph at Whitefish Bay as a student occurred when I arrived here from Shorewood on the playground of Henry Clay School. It was a grammar school in those days. On the very first day of school in the second grade. A new Whitefish Bayer, a stranger, and a second grader. I'm walking onto the playground with, considerable apprehension. What does a second grader feel like in a new place? And a young man comes running up to me and he says, "Hey kid, you new here? What grade you in?" And at this point, I'm thinking to myself, wow, this Whitefish Bay is really a friendly place. I've only been here for, less than a minute, and I'm already making friends. And I figured he was going to ask me my name and where I'm from, and that's how things go. But that's not what he asked. What he said to me was, hey kid, you fast? And I didn't know the answer, but before I could say to myself, wow, this Whitefish Bay is really a competitive place. We're lining up the starting line, 1, 2, 3, and off we go. I won that race, and in the process, I learned a lesson that has stood me in good standing to this day, and that lesson is, when you run fast, you can make 1,000,000 friends. So as impressive as this athletic triumph in the second grade was, it's not the reason we're here today, not at all. The reason we're here today is the direct result of 2 events that occurred 50 years and 3,000 miles apart. In our 50th class reunion, as I mentioned, which took place in the autumn of 2017, a year and a half ago, we went on a tour of the high school, and there was one classmate. Many kind of had funny feelings. We toured the athletic facility, we saw these plaques. There was one classmate who felt deeply that our class was not being recognized for our noteworthy accomplishments on the field of play. He led the campaign to gain recognition for my class and for my athletic achievements, which occurred so long ago. And this classmate, I will tell you his name, it is Jim Rumack. I'm not done with Jim's story. That's the 50 years part. Now what about the 3,000 miles? What's that all about? Well, Jim lives in Sonoma, California. He came here today. I live in New York City. They're roughly, almost exactly, 3,000 miles apart. So even as the Hall of Fame campaign was heating up in September and October of 2017, something far more ominous was heating up as well in Sonoma County, precisely where Jim lives. There were vast, unimaginably dangerous, destructive, life-threatening wildfires raging. These fires destroyed thousands of homes, took dozens of lives, and this is precisely where Jim lives. At one point, the firefighters were literally battling flames from Jim's patio, from his property, from his yard. Jim and his wife Mary had been evacuated, so they were safe, but this kind of thing kind of sticks in your mind, don't you think? So in the middle of all this, I get this phone call from Jim, and when you get a phone call from Jim, you can see him smiling on the phone, even without Skype. And I said, and Jim says, Howie, I just got the most phenomenal Hall of Fame letter from one of our classmates. You got to hear this. And I said, Jim, are you crazy? Your life, your home, your well-being are in serious jeopardy. You're worrying about Hall of Fame letters? You know, I know it's important, but it's not that important. You should focus on what really matters at this point. He responded with a smile, the same smile, and he says that California has the best firefighting teams in the world. It's all about the wind, and focusing on the Hall of Fame helps me relax. So Jim, thank you so much for your... We are a class. The class of 67 has this tremendous feeling of togetherness, but I must tell you, there's a subset of classmates that require special mention. These classmates are so special that they have a unique name. It's called teammates. My teammates back in 67 were so talented that we overwhelmed the vast majority of our opponents. We had strength, we had speed, we had guile, creativity, physical dexterity, mental agility, but occasionally we faced an opponent who amazingly matched up in almost all these qualities. It's funny how I never remember the easy wins in basketball and in football. I only remember the tough ones, and this was a tough one. We were playing a perennial rival, Waukesha. I understand Whitefish doesn't play Waukesha these days. We were playing Waukesha in a football game. We were doing all the things that we had practiced and succeeded at week after week, all season long, and nothing worked. At every turn, we were faced It wasn't easy. We were faced with a wall of opposition, and they looked really, really big, and I can tell you they were big. Great teams, and ours was one, have 2 additional qualities which we resort to in situations like these, a secret weapon, if you will, and these qualities are the communication and trust with one another that we had cultivated as a team and nourished all season long. On one play, the same play we have been trying to succeed with all evening, failed on that particular play. Things fell into place. It worked. An opening in the defensive wall appeared in an instant. A ray of light all the way to the goal line. We scored. And you know, all the highlight reels that we could talk about, the punt returns and all this other stuff, for whatever reason, that game, that moment, that's what I remember. Our skills as a team had triumphed over what our individual skills could not. So I leave out an important element in the team endeavor, and that is structure. Structure is provided by the coaches, and the coaches perform this role in so many different ways, through strategy, through tactics, through player management, through motivation. I want to invite you into the locker room and eavesdrop on a few of these motivational remarks made by one of our coaches. I could give you countless examples from all three sports. In the interest of time, I will restrict it to just one, Coach Nagel, in basketball. In our senior year, our basketball team was so successful, we left a trail of victories in every single gym from Whitefish Bay to Madison, and it was unbelievably thrilling. If you have participated in sport, you know that the difference between winning and losing is more often than not 1 or 2 points, 1 or 2 plays, very few things, and if you make those things right, things work out well. I remember the things I remember Coach Nagel saying were not the things when we were successful in our senior year, because success is like blinding sunlight. You just can't even think about it. You're so happy, you're so successful. I'm thinking about the years prior when we had challenges, and what was Coach Nagel's response? Well, we're in lead for much of the game. In the fourth quarter, the lead gradually drains away. Back in the locker room, Coach Nagel says, "We had him on the hook and we lost him." That's what he said, and that stuck with me. Situation 2, even worse. You have the lead further in the game. In the last few moments, you lose that game, and what does Coach Nagel say? He says you snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. And finally, the third situation, the most painful comment of all, when these narrow defeats became commonplace, he would say, "You know what is killing us, fellas? Failure. Failure is killing us." Well, so Whitefish Bay, as Jeff had mentioned, is a citadel, a cathedral of athletic excellence, but it's also a town. It's a culture, it's a community, and I have lived in New York City for 50 years, pretty much since graduating from college. But I'm originally from Whitefish Bay, so what am I? Am I a Whitefish Bayer? Am I a New Yorker? What actually am I? Let me tell you a story, one quick story that will help you make up your mind. I've not changed residences that often in my life, but I have moved on occasion. On one such occasion, Marge and I were moving, my wife, and during one such move, after 10 or 15 minutes of work, the moving foreman comes over and he says, "Hey buddy," he says, "you're not from around here, are you?" And I said, "Well, that's true, I'm not originally from around here, but why do you say that? What is it that gives me away? Is it the way I talk? Is it some of my artwork or furniture? What is it that makes you think I'm not from around here?" And he says, "No, it's because you're helping us lift and move boxes. You're making the job easier." New Yorkers don't do that. What New Yorkers do is they follow you around and they say, "Be careful of this, don't break that, don't scratch this, don't do that." That's what New Yorkers do. So in that moving foreman taught me an important lesson that day, that what I thought was to pitch in and lend a helping hand was human nature. I thought that's what humans did. But no, it isn't. It's a skill, it turns out, that you learn right here in Whitefish Bay. And when you display that skill, no matter where you go in life, people stand up and take notice. Well, I want to tell you 2 more stories. You'll like this. You'll like this. So the first thing I hear are the 5 words when I come to Whitefish Bay: "Hey kid, are you fast?" And 10 years later, and of course, 10 years when you're a high school student seems like forever. Now it feels like a moment in time. I've just won for the second year in a row, the low hurdles. I was fortunate to win that race for the second year in a row. Upon returning to Whitefish Bay, I get a letter from one of my coaches, Coach Hurst. The last communication I received as a student athlete at Whitefish Bay, and I want to read a few lines of this letter to you, but before I read them, I need to do 3 things. I have to offer you an explanation, an apology, and an invitation. First, the explanation. There's a reference in the letter to an injury. I did, in fact, injure my hamstring muscle in the spring season. Sometimes, as today, the spring in Wisconsin can be a bit on the chilly side. So, there's a reference to an injury. I wanted to make sure you understood that. Now the apology, in this letter, I'm the beneficiary of some unexpected and extremely compelling and overwhelming superlatives and compliments and praise. The apology goes to the other Hall of Famers today, to Steve, to Jennifer, who's not here, to Coach Wessels. When you hear these superlatives, I want you to know, it's not that I think I'm a better athlete than you are. I am a better athlete. I just had a more expressive coach. Coach Hurst had a better way. And finally, here's the invitation. When you hear this letter, it'd be reasonable for you to assume I have a framed copy of this letter hanging in my kitchen or my living room or wherever people look for inspiration in their homes. But I am so ashamed to tell you that not only do I not have a framed copy hanging, I forgot I received the letter altogether, and I didn't know where it was. Turns out my wife and I were doing a bout of spring cleaning a couple months ago, and we came upon this letter. It's a happy coincidence, very happy coincidence, for all of us, I think, that I received the letter, and I'm so happy to share it with you today. And the invitation is a simple one. I've read this letter probably 30 times, and every time I read it, I sort of get choked up. So, even though I try not to, I get a bit choked up. So my invitation to you is a simple one. If you feel so inclined, and that's what happens, feel free to join me. With that, here is the letter from Coach Hurst, the spring of 1967. Dear Howie, so far so good. I want to congratulate you on a fine victory. In light of the hamstring pull, I'm not sure it's really what you wanted to accomplish, but it was still a fine win, and you are still the champion. I can only tell you this, Howie, that of all the boys with whom I've come in contact during my coaching tenure, that you rank up at the top. If we could believe that all the boys or girls coming out for athletics at Whitefish Bay could give the same leadership, exude the same drive and determination, be the same kind of scholar, and at the same time be a real gentleman and school citizen, it would be a perpetually pleasant task to work under these conditions. Sincerely, Coach Hurst. I guess what he was trying to say was, hey kid, you were fast. Thank you very much.